My friend's little daughter got hit by a car. So 2 days ago my best friend asked me to watch his 7-year-old daughter. Well, he and his wife went to a funeral of a family friend, which I gladly accepted since I had nothing to do that day. She kept begging me to take her to the store to get chocolate and candy, which her parents usually don't get for her, and I accepted on the condition that she doesn't tell them since they're very strict about what she eats and stuff. So I took her to the convenience shop down the street, where she picked what she wanted. While I was paying for it, I told her to wait for me, but she didn't listen and went running to the car. It was a very hot and sunny day, which made it really hard to see and drive. And there was a lot of cars on the road and my car was parked across it. She was jumping and running, while I was running behind her to get her, and she was hit by a car. The driver and 2 other dudes who were standing there and me all came to her and we called the ambulance. Thankfully she only broke one of her legs. I was screaming and crying and thanking God she was alive, and well, in 10 minutes the ambulance and the police arrived, and so did her parents. My friend went straight to his daughter, who was screaming in pain and started crying. Then he came screaming at me and asking me how could I let this happen to her and why I wasn't there, but the guys that were there defended me and told him that I was screaming at her to stop and was running after her and that it wasn't my fault. Even my friend's father came out and said that it wasn't my fault and it was hers. Then my friend apologized and I told him not to worry about it and to go be with his daughter who had a surgery last night. This morning, I went and visited them in the hospital before work with a gift to her, and she was doing better, but was still in a lot of pain. I feel so bad and guilty about it, since if I didn't take her to that damn store she wouldn't be in pain and in the hospital, and I feel like a failure and am ashamed of myself. Stories number 2. I'm in need of a doctor, and here's yet another bad one in the world of pain where you have no choice but to take it. From the moment she sat down she had an attitude. She was apprehensive. I didn't know why, but it soon became apparent. We were behind masks and I knew from the tone of her snide voice that I needed to be gentle and speak softly. So I did. We went over my medical history. As she was asking question, I could tell she had her mind on something else. The question seemed hollow and needing of an answer. Every question asked invariably led back to what she had her eyes on: clonazepam. She wanted to know how long I was on it. I told her 5 or 6 years for PTSD, depression, and anxiety. I don't think she wanted to or how I got them. I explained to her how the clinic doctors had been going to. I had originally started going there in an attempt to get off of clonazepam because I felt at that time it was time. This was 5 years ago, after at least 4 years of trying numerous drugs, gentlemen, and having a year of my life lost to the floor from tapering down. The doctors finally said nothing is working, you're getting worse. Clonazepam was right for you, and that there is no other drug that they think will have the same beneficial effects that it has for you. You obviously cannot function on any other medication that we've given you for years, but clonazepam, we advise that you stay on it. It's as possible that the drug is meant for your chemical makeup. This doctor didn't want to hear that. This woman cited her long tenure as a doctor for 25 years and never heard of such a medication being given to someone for long term because it could potentially lead to cardiac problems. Well, I've been doing a lot of things for over 25 years and never heard of things being done in my field, but they've been done. People out there do know things that I don't. It's how I learn. I think she was simply against the drug, period. This isn't uncommon. I have been to many doctors, lots of bad ones in my life, and when you even mention benzodiazepine, they'd clamor up like someone put an ice cube up their butt. Oh no. No, I would never prescribe that. This woman had the same intentions and I was familiar with it. But the reason I had gone there wasn't psychological. I explained this to her. I have a psychotherapist. This drug has nothing to do with why I'm here or you. I don't want you to write me anything for that drug. Other trained people do. I need help with my physical problems. She again was hung up on the clonazepam and was convinced by either means of personal hang-up or belief, not science, that at some point if she were to help me she would be signing a prescription for clonazepam and that she didn't want to be doing that. I assured her that I was in control. Who does that? Not her, because of how my treatments are set up. I only need a physical physician. I need a doctor for my body that has an immediate problem. She didn't hear that. Her mind was on the medication. In fact, she said I should get a psychiatrist to work this medication out, and Get off it before even seeing here, which wasn't even that reason I was there. Also, and I told her before when she wasn't listening to me or letting me explain. At that point I realized I wasn't going to get anywhere on this matter, so I began to reinforce I was there. But in the back of my mind, I was already heading for the door. I am fatigued, damn weak, I get dizzy spells all within the last 4 months. I've lost 15 pounds unexpectedly without changing any diet or exercise. In fact, I'm so fatigued I can't exercise. My joints hurt, my sciatica is acting up, I have a bleeding hemorrhoid I need to see a proto about. I need help. She didn't care, Kwana Zapham. What type of person denies someone that needs immediate help over a hang-up that they have with a drug that has nothing to do with them? What type of terrible, unethical and violating the Hippocratic Oath mind you doctor would reject the current problem of someone in need that had been waiting 2 months just to see them? This one. Janel Guyette at the Pacific Medical Group in Portland, Oregon, 503-285-6607 in case you'd like to schedule a migraine. Outside of her rude demeanor, and I hesitate to mention the fact that a doctor who is there to treat health could be so terribly overweight is an oxymoron. She had the personality of a woman scorned by ineptitude, or possibly even something male related. The business has no male employees, I just recalled. Who knows? All I know is she gave me the shaft on something that had no relation to why I was there. She denied me help when I so desperately need it. She is a piece of shit, and how she's been in practice could only be attributed to Portland, Oregon. You have to live here to know. The people are indecent at their best, and is their virtue. Did I mention she was one in a long line of doctors who behave this way there? I wish I never fucking said I took any medication to begin with, then I probably would have gotten the help I needed. Maybe. Stories number 3. Got high and ran into cops pulling over a black couple and started recording and did not know how to act sober. I just cannot handle social situations when I'm high unless I'm with my close friends. Then one fateful night, I run into a serious situation with cops. And there is no way they didn't realize I was high as a kite. Let me set the scene. It is a warm summer night in a mostly empty beach town. My friends and I had just gotten drunk and then really high when we decided to go out for a walk near the beach. So we start walking and smoking and getting higher. Suddenly we see several cop cars and sirens go by. We freaked a little, but they disappeared, so we were chill. 5-ish minutes later, we end up at the main beach street where we see some cops having pulled over a car. We're curious to see what's going, so we get a little closer, but not too close. We didn't want to get in trouble for public intoxication and the like. However, as we get closer, I realize the couple the cops pulled over were a black man and woman. And I hear them answering the cops' questions with confusion. I hear something along the lines of, "We got a report of some black people making a disturbance at a bar." From one of the cops, the black man responds that they haven't been anywhere near a bar tonight. At this point, several thoughts happen in my high brain, the most important being that I had to be there for this couple and record, especially considering the ton of police brutality that had happened in recent news. So I walk up to the cops and couple and start recording with my phone. I don't say anything at first because I really didn't know what to say, nor was I sure I'd able to give in the chance. Then, as the cops tell the man and woman to sit on the curb while they check out their car, pretty sure this was an illegal search, the woman notices me and the phone and thanks me for being there. In trying really hard to form words and coherent thoughts again, I was drunk and really high. And I say no problem. Then it's silent as the couple sit on the curb and the cops start roaming through their car. Being high, I start to feel a weird mixture of paranoia and social awkwardness, and I feel that it's been ages since anyone has talked. Felt like 20 minutes, but in the video I think it was more like 2 minutes of silence. And in thinking I need to do something to ease the tension, then I open my mouth. So I begin, then take a big breath that allows the rest of my words to stumble out together in such a way that not only surprises everyone but also very obviously makes them aware I'm not sober. Have y'all heard about the astronauts up in space? It's kind of crazy. Like, people I know have built the systems in place and technology to allow people to go to space. It really makes you wonder at how great the universe is and how we all need to be there for each other. They all look at me. The woman looks like she instantly regretted thanking me, probably wondering what lunatic would try and start a conversation like that in a situation as it was while being very obviously not sober. Then the man saves the day and starts joining my conversation and We find out we're both from South LA and a real conversation starts. Then the cop asks if I can stop recording because he has a camera on him, and it's not necessary. But I persist. He gets defensive. The woman tries to defend me. Then they get into a heated argument. I again feel extreme social awkwardness and start talking. You know, we all live in this world and it's hard no matter what. We just all need to be here for each other. We all have our own families and shit we deal with. And I want you to know I'm here for you. You know, in this world we only have each other. We can't let one another down. The cop and the woman look at me this time, in a weird combination with disbelief and relief. And the cop starts agreeing and the woman starts agreeing, and then they both apologize to one another for the tense situation and shake hands. It was fucking crazy. Anyways, the cops end up admitting that they had the wrong people. Even that they may have jumped the gun stopping them, and let them go. I stop recording after the cops pull away and the coupe leaves, and I head back to where my friends were waiting. And I believed that I saved that couple, and that just maybe I had some unknown superpower that could erase racism and solve conflicts. Until I once again became sober, and realized the world sucks. But if you ever want to ease a tense situation, just make a fool out of yourself. It'll confuse everyone else enough to get them to band together to deal with your weird lunatic shit. Stories number 4. I genuinely didn't know that you're supposed to return your shopping cart until I was well into my 20s. When I was growing up, my dad would always park it on the curb, and I just thought that's what you're supposed to do with them. It didn't help that our grocery store had roofed car corrals, and I was a really unobservant kid. I thought the car corrals were covered parking spaces for fancy people and never actually looked inside. Then in college I biked everywhere and never bought more than I could carry back with me, meaning not enough to justify getting a cart. And then when I actually noticed them for what they were at the ripe old age of 23, I used them just because I wanted to be nice to the people working at the store. I had no idea that's what you're actually supposed to do. Stories number 5. 2020 has literally been the best year of my life. So many great things have come into my life this year. I actually can't believe I've been so happy for so long now that I'm so happy now. I have suffered basically since I was a little child. I fell into depression and anxiety when I was 11, and I started self-harming when I was 12, forcefully had to quit at 15, while an eating disorder hit me when I was 13, and has been crushing for years. I've also been sexually assaulted at 13. I tried to commit suicide 3 times between 2014 and 2015. I have avoidant personality disorder. I can't stand being around people, and I generally feel very anxious when I'm outside. I'm so scared of people, I barely talk and try to socialize. I can't make any friends, and the only few people I used to be friends with were shit while in high school. There were a couple classmates I could have actually made great friends with, but was too scared to really start a friendship with. Everything I love to do is inside my house, and I've wished I never had to get out for years. High school put so much stress on me I thought I couldn't make it, even being in class a nightmare. I've always been a romantic, and being alone crushed me, and though I had a serious relationship for 3 years, my partner was not so good for me. Well, I too had toxic unrequited relationships that killed everything I was each time. My mother works a lot, so I used to stay at my grandparents' house all day since I was 4, and it was so stressful. Because of my grandmother, who has behavior and psychological issues, I gained my mother's trust to stay at our house alone last year and see my grandparents a couple times a month, more rarely now with COVID. I recovered from sexual assault PTSD in 2019. I cut off the toxic friends and found strong and deep connections with those 2 beautiful people instead. In 2019, I got my HS diploma after 3 months of online lessons that changed my life significantly this year. I moved on to university, which feels 10 times better than high school. This winter I fucked up enrollment and had to choose another university to spend the year, with the project of going back to my first choice next year. And you know what? I fucked up, and that's okay. I've never felt so calm about failing, and I know next year I'll be in online courses or something amazing. I didn't have to move out, no pressure, easier interaction, easier digital notes. I can keep concentrated longer. It's just great. I found what I thought would be my best friend forever in April 2019. 1 year later, we fell in love. I struggled to escape a relationship that could have made my life a dream for a month, because I was scared. In March we committed. Now I'm living a dream with my partner and I seriously think this will last to the end of our life. I love him with all my heart and he loves me as hell and we're so happy together it seems impossible. Everything in this relationship is just perfect. I almost completely recovered from anorexia after committing with him. I gained weight again up to my regular body figure and I know I'm chubby and it's okay and I love it. I also finally started expressing myself through clothes, hair, and makeup. Now that I have the time to take care of my appearance and my body is no longer a monster to me. I don't feel any pressure from the outside world because my partner is with me all the time and we only get out to go to a restaurant or have a drink. I used to drink a lot, it was almost the only reason why I'd go out. Now I learned to prepare great cocktails at home, but drink less and share them with him. I see my best friends a couple times a month but every time we meet it's great. And I realize how much I missed through high school not befriending them before. They're the best friends I ever had. My depression is completely gone. Problems still crush me hard, but everything is so easier to accept and pain subsides in less than a day. I don't feel any kind of pressure or anxiety, I feel like everything is just okay. I have time for myself, I can do everything I want because everything I love is in my house, including the person I've loved the most in my life. I think I couldn't be happier and surely I've never been. It feels like every problem just disappeared and everything I ever wanted is right here in my hands. I'm so happy with my 2020. Stories number 6. We had a communal house dildo. Context: I once lived in a house with 6 other friends. Cheap rent, good roommates. We had parties every weekend with 50 people. Life was good. A buddy of ours was very homophobic. His parents said they would disown him if he was gay. One of the guys in the house who knew him the best bought a pink suction cup glow-in-the-dark dildo. Good news, we eventually got him desensitized to the point where he accepted that gay people aren't scary small victories. The idea was to stick it to the front of his truck. He would either have to touch it to get it off or leave it, at which point we would laugh at him. We thought it was funny, but it never happened, because he moved a couple days after it was bought. So ultimately, we just had it around the house and would fuck with each other, fall asleep on the couch. You get a pic taken with a dildo in your mouth. We sanitized it regularly. We stuck it to the wall and hung Christmas decorations on it. We hid it in the cupboards, place it just right so that if you open the cupboard it would fall out at you. We all got pretty good at throwing it at a wall and getting it to stick. Some kids had Elf on a shelf, we had Pink Dink in the sink. We had rotating roommates. Some people started moving out and starting their lives after college. Until I was the last to leave. I left it in the shower the last day I moved out with a note. This is Pink Dink. He may be small, but he can bring so much joy to the world if you use him properly. The landlord wouldn't answer my texts after that. I assume he was embarrassed by what the new tenants had found. Stories number 7. I pretended I was selling something on Craigslist and got to strangers to meet awkwardly. Years ago I made a new email address and got to potential buyers for a PlayStation that I was pretending to sell. I confirmed a date and time with both of them. Decided on the mall near a certain store. I asked what they'd be wearing so I could find them. I gave them each other's description for myself and then went and hung out. One walked up to the other, you could tell there was an immediate confusion. They started arguing over who had what. You could see them get pissed once they realized what happened and wasted their time. They both stormed off on their phones. Sure enough, I got angry emails from both of them, lol. I feel kinda bad about it, but it was a funny interaction to witness. Stories number 8. My shit show called life. I've been bullied basically for my whole life. Even after school, cyberbullying still was around, and back then, I didn't know I can just turn off my device and continue my life. Actually sat there and read and watch everything that people said about me. I'm bipolar, PTSD, depression. Life was always hard with all of these things, and basically, that's why it's so hard for me going to school or just work. This is actually very far away from me. I can barely get out of the house. Going to my doc and my therapist. Mental hospital is an option, but I didn't like it last time because I felt like nothing really changed. It was nice being with other people though. I really miss being able to talk to people other than my family, the therapist, and my doc. I'm lonely, but I've always been. I didn't really fit into anything. Most of the time, I was just lost in my thoughts. Even when I was younger, I always got lost in the thought why no one seems to like me. No one invited me to their birthday party. Well, with one exception, but it was just his mother trying to help me making friends. Didn't really work out. I really miss talking to people outside of the internet. I want to be with someone, laugh, cry, we just something that stops the loneliness inside of me. Every time I found someone I like to be with, it gets destroyed very quickly. My best friend's leukemia elapsed and he was fighting for his life, but in the end he lost before Christmas. That was a setback for me. Then I got into contact with an old classmate. We were a couple till they just vanished out of my life, still not sure why. Every time I feel like I took a step forward, life immediately puts me 10 steps back, and it just ends in me being lonely, lying in bed watching the same YouTube vids every year. Got into another relationship 6 months ago. They changed my life for the first time. I was happy, making lots of progress. Even trying to find a job. 1 month later they replaced me with another person. Still not sure why. Me and them lost our virginity to each other, and a week later I suddenly get replaced. I feel abused since everything just got even worse than before. I always wanted my first time being with someone special I can trust, and was feeling like that as well. Though when they sent me an SMS insulting me and typing "I have a new one," my reality shattered into tiny little pieces. I really feel abused, used, and then thrown away. This actually was a huge impact for me. I deleted all my social media and stopped talking to my internet friends. I used to stream on Twitch, having fun talking to people, till the cyberbullying started with people dedicating streams just to bash on me. After that my channel was dead. My friends were there but no one else was. Trusting someone again will be a hard task for me, and it'll take a long time. Now my PC is broken, can't do anything ATM other than listening to my music, singing along. I read all my books several times, watch the same YouTube videos way too often, and don't really be able to find a new YouTube channel I like. There's so many content creators and I just don't like most of them. I'm using my phone scrolling around in Reddit, ranting in subreddits, writing PSAs, telling people my stories. This gives me at least something to do. Stories number 9. The time I farted out my entire class. Normally I'm posting past stories about my evil mother and formerly entitled sister, but after doing that for so long it's starting to burn me out, so I thought I'd tell a funny story from my past for a change back. When I was a teenager, some foods gave me really bad gas, especially spicy foods. It also didn't help that I really like certain spicy foods. Well, this was back when I was 17 and driving my first car to school. I think it was a Monday because I remember it as being the first day of school for the week. The night before I'd dined on some pizza covered with hot peppers and I'd had eggs for breakfast. Didn't help, I also liked energy drinks back then too. I guess all of that combined in my gut made me a walking bomb waiting to go off. I was in one of the afternoon periods, either the last or second to last period of the day. I think it was English class. The teacher there was a cranky old man in his 60s who wasn't fond of me, though he didn't do anything like singling me out or marking my scores lower. He just didn't like me, fair enough, because I didn't like him either. Nobody actually seemed to like him though. As a teacher he was good at his job, but he was pretty gruff. A lot of us joked that he was just waiting to retire. Well, we were in the middle of silent reading and the class was dead quiet. So when I suddenly farted, it was pretty loud and may as well have echoed, since before it was quiet enough to hear a pin drop. Right after I'd ripped us, everyone in the room turned to look at me all at once. The students closest to me started gagging and getting up from their desks. And then the smell worked its way to the teacher. He started coughing and saying his eyes were watering before running over to the windows to open them. I was really embarrassed and just wanted to be invisible. So I raised my hand and asked if I could be excused to the bathroom. The teacher just pointed without even looking at me because his head was out the window and said go. I asked for a hall pass since one was required, and he had to go back to his desk to get one for me while holding his breath, because he was so anal that he kept them in a locked drawer, and it didn't help that right as I got up I ripped another one. I can remember someone near me said, "Oh come on." The teacher threw me the hall pass and told me not to come back until my ass was empty before running back to the window. As I headed to the bathroom I let out a couple more rancid farts in the hall, and one of them I ripped us while walking by a classroom with an open door. Still don't know what their reaction was, but I hope they closed that door fast. I went to the bathroom and stank it up. A couple of guys walked in to take a lee, while I was in the stall and left as soon as they could because of the smell. By the time I came back the class was nearly over. I got a lot of dirty looks, but after class a lot of other students came to me and said it was the funniest thing they'd seen in a while. Because after I left the teacher refused to come away from the window until the smell in the room died down. When school was over I got into my car to go to my part-time job working for my dad when I farted again. Being in a closed car with my own gas made me gag and my eyes were burning like I'd just cut into some fresh onions. I had to roll down all of the windows and drive to work that way. I warned my dad about my gas and he told me if I even felt like a fart was coming to just run outside. He was well aware of how bad my gas could be. I did end up having to run outside a couple of times. One of the employees was outside on break around back of the building and smoking a cigarette when I ran outside and ripped ass. He was downwind of it too, but he just laughed and said, "Dambo, did something crawl in your ass and die?" I could only look awkward and say it was the spicy food I'd eaten the night before. He just kept laughing though and said he was a county boy and he and his brothers did that sort of thing all the time as kids. This wasn't the only day I had this kind of gas, but I earned the nickname the farter for a few months. It's one of the times that sticks out in my memory the most, and sometimes I do laugh when thinking about what it'd be like if my mother had been there too. My farts were the bane of her if she happened to be nearby when I had gas like that. Though admittedly I think one of the reasons I like spicy food so much then was because she hated them. Stories number 10. I don't know what to do with my life and I always think about ending myself because of it. So I'm 16, I have ADHD, and because of it, I've never really been the most academically inclined. I want to be an engineer and I'm good with mechanics, but I realize that I do not know the first thing about engineering theory. I'm about to finish my O-levels and I'm scared that I'm not gonna do good, and that I won't be able to find a good job or uni when I eventually graduate. I applied to a really good school that has a more holistic approach, but I got waitlisted and today I got my rejection letter. My two best friends, let's call them Jake and Zoc, both got accepted into the school since we all applied together. Zoc got accepted into two different schools and chose the other one instead of the one we all applied to so that I could have a slight chance of getting in. Didn't work out sadly. I'm now realizing that my two best friends are gonna leave me. And so will my girlfriend because she's going for foundation and isn't planning on staying for A-levels. I feel helpless, alone, and that I'm not going to be able to do anything with my life. I got diagnosed with ADHD and I was 10 and didn't find out until 2 years ago. I've researched medications to help me out, but they're too expensive. And my family isn't really in the position to buy me medication since my mom isn't mentally doing okay right now. I have a younger sister and older brother who is married, and my eldest sister. I don't know what I'm going to do or what's going to happen, but I know that I'll be alone. And I'm afraid everyone who's leaving will forget about me, move on, and I'll be left behind a failure. Stories number 11. How my asshole teen self gave away my will to life. Little bit about me. I am 22, temporary unemployed but trained office worker with weight, sleep, and psychological issues. I was around 18 at that time. When I met her, she was funny, intelligent, and kinda sweet. I didn't instantly fell in love with her, but with gimmick came. It began as a friend and I went from the city I lived to the city we both worked by train. She came to us while we were talking about how we would create unforgettable first dates. After his classic movie night with some kissing on the couch, I went for cooking together outdoors. I will call her Ruby from now on. It's close enough to her nickname and not close enough to her name to protect her identity. Ruby came up and asked what we were talking about and entered our chat with cooking at home together and watching a movie on the couch afterwards, or maybe cuddling. Shortly before she had to exit, we exchanged numbers for further communications. After she left the train, my friend gave me a little nudge and told me she likes you, ask her out. I did, but first we chatted for like a month, then sending each other riddles and stuff. It was the most entertaining time I've ever spent on my smartphone. I get to know her pretty good until our first date. We had both a blast learning runes US on codes and testing the other's minf. We also used a promotion of our local post service to exchange postcards cause it was nice to get such a card. Our first date came. I have met her a few times in the train before, but we hadn't spent time as a pair alone before. We even refused to call each other a pair before this, and after the date, we made a relationship contract for real. We had a long walk in the night and some really interesting conversations. So time went by, we had some cool dates, even the cooking together and watching a movie afterwards. And we had a really good time. We even had some kind of holidays, which we spent together shortly after I met her in person a few times. I asked her if she's autistic, my little brother, and some of her behavior reminded me of him, and she said she don't know. I invited her to my next psychiatrist meeting, and shortly after she was his client too. I also found out that she often cut herself and had other abnormal behavior, as well as a kind of stress-related narcoleptic syndrome thingy. I still don't know what it is. Even the doctors and specialists we visited couldn't tell us what it is. Around Christmas she asked if I come over and meet her family. I did. Her mother was a close-minded and cold lady who doesn't wanted to accept her daughter has issues. Her father was a distanced man and an idiot. Her younger brothers were cool though. She already knew my family pretty well and absolutely loved my mom. After Christmas I really understood why. My mom is a warm and wholesome person. The house she lived in was cold and felt empty, and I began to understand why she rather stayed with my family in our apartment. The relationship went good. We hadn't had sex because of her problems, and I respected that, but my stupid puberty brain didn't. And we were pretty happy, but her condition worried me, and I started to talk to a female colleague about her, which flattered me and obscured my mind. The breaking point where, when she accidentally killed one of her birds, and I decided to break up. I regret this ever since. Shortly before summer holidays began, I break up via WhatsApp. I know past me is an asshole. And shortly after go the relationship with the colleague which promised easy sex. I hate my teen me really. I would do so many times different if I could turn back time. Also I broke up with the colleague. She was a boring person and a half-dead fish in bed. Totally not worth it. I was 20.5 when I broke up with the collage. After the breakup with Ruby I apologized in person about a week later and we met for chats for a while. But we lost contact. I heard she found a new boyfriend and did not want to disturb her. Skip to the 22nd of January 2020. I got a WhatsApp message in which she told me Ruby killed herself after she get out of the mental institute she was brought after the schizophrenia made her suicidal, which was diagnosed about a year before. I also heard she was presumably raped on Christmas by this new boyfriend which already killed her inside. So now I am a broken tutuyo. Fucked up, the best thing I had in life and full of regrets and pain, and I feel like I lost my ability to love. Moral of the story: easy sex isn't worth it, believe me. Stories number 12. Ooh, I'm an idiot with rancid gas. People have kept asking me if I can still make as potent of farts as I did as a teenager. Well, the resounding answer now is yes. I fucking can. And it did not end well. Curiosity finally got the better of me and I decided to just give it a go. I ate some really spicy hot wings, had eggs and spicy chili for breakfast that day, ate a couple fiber bars, and even ordered a stinky pizza like the one I pranked my mother and sister with back in the day. But I added some ghost pepper seasoning to it. I thought about getting some green curry too, but now I'm glad I didn't. I spent all of Saturday eating only those foods I specified, and my stomach did not take well to it. There was some loud gurgling. You know it's bad when you literally feel the contents of your digestive tract shifting from place to place. At one point it felt like something in my gut dropped down. By the middle of the night I was farting like crazy and could barely stay out of the bathroom because I had to take repeated lava dumps. The smell was actually so bad that in the morning one of my neighbors came knocking to ask if I had a septic leak, and it was really awkward explaining to them it was literally all just my rancid gas from eating the wrong foods. They didn't really believe me till I let a small one rip right in front of them. It was just a small one, but it was bad enough that they backed away pretty quickly. I had to take both anti-gas and anti-diarrhea pills for 3 days just to get back to normal. I even had to call and warn my girlfriend not to come over. She knows how potent my farts can be if I let them. I warned my sister too and she stuttered over the phone. She remembers my farts well and agreed it's best I stay away for a week or so. I had scented candles and air fresheners all over the house, and they took the edge off. I also had to open every window. Thankfully it only took a day for the stank to go away. But my god, it was so bad. Imagine a smell like someone feasted on rotten eggs, and then shit out death on top of a pile of rancid wet garbage with fresh cut onions all over it, and a hint of vinegar. That's how bad this smell was. I've made level 8 farts many times before, but I think this was on level 9 or 10. I actually took a couple of days off work just to make sure I got it all out of my system. Neighbors did come knocking more than once to ask about the smell, and of all things a cop came to my door for a wellness check. I have no idea who called him, but this part I'm really ashamed of. I explained to the officer that it was all my horrid gas, and he didn't seem to believe me and questioned what I may have in the house, so I ripped us right in front of him just to prove it, like I had to for my neighbor earlier. But this one was so much worse. Damn near shit myself doing it too. He backed away gagging and trying to cover his nose. Then started saying it was so bad he could taste it. And then he actually threw up. He vomited all over one of the gnomes I had along my walkway. It took him a good 10 minutes of sitting on the hood of his car to get a little bit better. I asked him if he was okay, and he was actually borderline crying from the smell and told me not to come any closer, and that he was on the verge of vomiting again if the smell got any worse. He was an older man, I'd say mid-40s or so, and he gave me that age-old line of "Dambo, what did you eat?" and I had to awkwardly explain everything. He must have been shaking his head the entire time and said I was an idiot for doing all of that. I didn't disagree. I got no sleep that night, and for once not due to insomnia, but rather because my own farts kept me awake. I ended up spending a lot of time sitting in the backyard at my patio and drinking bottled water. In the morning, I went for a walk to try and get some fresh air. And I walked by some kids waiting for a school bus, and I could hear them talking about a terrible smell after I went by. One kid actually loudly said, "Did you smell that?" I just went around the block and right back home. For the next couple of days I woke up half expecting I'd shit the bed or something. But I didn't. The room still smelled like rotten eggs though. Thank God for those air fresheners. I'm finally back to normal now. But this was all awry. I don't want to go through again. Gonna have to be more careful with spicy foods from now on too. I feel like if there was a B movie called Fartnado, I'd be the star. My mind keeps imagining it as a bad parody of that 90s movie Twister. R.I.P. Bill Paxton. Stories number 13. I got roofied last night. It was my fault. I was clubbing with friends. I had a few drinks, was a little drunk, having a good time. I noticed a couple and some guy dancing near me. The couple looked at me and talked a bunch of times and were smiling. I figured they were trying to get their friend to hit on me, but he never did, didn't even get close to me. The girl came up super sweet, and typical drunk girl at the club, introduced herself and her BF and then danced with me. They left a little later and I figured they had gone home. But later on they were back. The girl was holding 2 drinks. I realized this morning I never even saw her drink from either of them. She offered me one and I said no, but she pushed it at me and I took a few sips. She said I could have the whole thing and I just waved her off. A few minutes later I felt absolutely out of it. I barely knew where I was. I was looking for my friends, but couldn't even process the faces I was seeing. I managed to text one and everything after that is just a blank space. They took really good care of me and nothing really bad happened. But it's my fault. I feel so guilty. I was stupid. Everyone knows not to take drinks you don't see someone make. I caused a shitton of stress for my friends and made them fight. They called my mom. At 1 a.m. She's a great mom, and it wasn't a big deal and ruined the whole night. I just needed to say this somewhere, I guess. Stories number 14. The neighbor that threatened to kill my dogs. This is something that happened to me around 2018. I was 13. Where do I begin? We have a neighbor named N. Well, you see, N was kinda weird. We hardly saw him besides the evidence that I'm about to share. So here we go. My brother named E and my dad were at ball game and were just coming home, and we had 2 pit bull puppies. I was with my mom, I believe, went to get food, and when we came home my dad had something to tell my mom. When my brother and dad got home they were in the house and were changing clothes and saw a four-wheeler at the gate. My dad went to check out what was happening and apparently it wasn't well and had waited until my dad got up to the gate. And conversation goes as follows: "You need to stop your damn dogs," N said, and I looked confused and said, "Were they in your yard?" And said, "Well, no," and my dad just looked more confused and then saw a gun in the back of his four-wheeler. And asks for my dad's name, his name being H. And then he leaves. A few days after that we see him and hitting the dogs through the fence and then yelled for the dogs, and he looked at me and said you need to get these damn dogs and get them, and if I remember correctly he called me a bitch somewhere in between these two. Little did he know my mom was on the porch watching and she yelled, "Don't you dare yell at my daughter," and while she did that the dogs came to me. We thought I was over that day because he walked back to his house. Little did we know it was only just beginning. I brought the dogs in the house about an hour passes by while my mom and dad talk about what just happened. Then he comes back on his four-wheeler and it goes as follows. My mom is outside, and she walks up to the fence that we have around our yard next to him. My dad is on the porch and me and my brother are both there as well. My mom and him start yelling at each other. Sorry, I can't remember exactly what they said. At some point he threatens my mom and says you better watch your back and says, if you don't stop them I will shoot them. My mom then yells at my dad and tells him to call the police because he just threatened her and left after that. Then the cops showed up and we are talking to them and I walk up and point near his house and was there watching us the entire time we were talking to the cops. Then once the cops and talked to him and left and we went into our house, the real fun starts. In the middle of the night we hear something being an four-wheeler and we see him going on our property messing up our grass. Then we call the cops again and they come out but he's gone. They go to his house. This is the middle of the night. My dad, while this was happening, had taken video of it but it was blurry. A few days passed by. And then it turns into about a month and then the stalking happens. He would watch us and my dad would take pictures. The main time I remember this is on my birthday. The curtains were being cleaned and I had a few friends over and we went to eat cake and he was watching us the entire time. I yelled at my dad and pointed and my dad sat there and took more video. After that I believe my parents went to court over this and I'm not exactly sure what happened. Then it seemed to stop. Then my mom got rid of the dogs, being afraid he might actually shoot them. Everything kinda calmed down after that. Though there is one thing that still scares me. I believe he has a drone, and throughout my childhood I would see it near my house, and it would fly just close enough to be able to see me and my brother. I told my parents, they didn't believe me at first. That was until my mom walked out of the house and the drone was right next to her head. So I'm pretty sure even before this incident happened he was spying on us. Now I'm 15. I haven't seen a drone or him in a while and I hope to never again. What I mean, for a while the drone I have maybe seen once this entire year, so that's good. I believe he either moved or is still there and has not bothered us since court. I'm glad he seems to have disappeared. I have a habit of looking out of windows constantly because of this, so thanks. So yeah, thanks dude, I'm so glad that I feel like I'm being watched 24/7. Stories number 15. The time I intentionally farted out a play place. Just about everybody knows about McDonald's play places, and you know where this is going from the title. So I'll admit now that this was unbelievably immature and petty of me, but rather satisfying nonetheless. It was back in my early 20s and I was still working on getting my potent gas under control. But stupid me still really enjoy eating spicy foods. I mean, I still love it but had to cut back for my own sake. By that point, I had mostly good days, but on bad days I could gag a maggot. If anyone, or anything for that matter, suffered the most, then it was my poor bathroom. I bet that toilet would have jumped out the window if it could. This story was one of my bad gas days. At the time, I was no longer living in my dad's house and had an apartment, and I was neighbors with a single mother we'll call Sherry. She was in her late 30s and always busy. She and her ex had split custody of their son Sean, and he was only around 7 or 8 years old. He was also a complete little brat. Reminded me a lot of how my sister used to be. Even caught him trying to steal from my wallet once. It was on a Saturday or Sunday, don't really remember which, but Sherry came knocking on my door begging me to watch her son for a while, because she got called into the office last minute and would be gone for hours, and she had no babysitter on such short notice. It wasn't the first time I watched Sean for her and it wasn't the last. I also never really asked her for money because she didn't ask me often and it was never for all day. I think the longest I ever watched Sean was about 6 hours. And the kid was easily sated with video games, but he was still a little thief at times. He once walked out with a video game disc tucked under his shirt, and Sherry had to return it later when she caught him playing the game. It was not a game for kids by any stretch of the word. If Sean was caught stealing, he'd get grounded, and that kid loved to scream and tantrum whenever he got grounded. Sherry did blame a fair bit of the way Sean acted on herself since she was busy with work a lot. But her ex was also a real piece of work. The few times I met the guy, he was a real asshole to me for no reason. He was also a decade younger than Sherry. She told me they met at a party, got drunk and had a one-night stand. And that's how they had Sean, and Sean picked up plenty of bad habits from his father. But that's not really what this story is about, so I'll move on. When Sherry showed up begging me to watch Sean for a few hours, she also gave me money to take him to the local McDonald's for lunch. I wasn't doing much of anything, so I took him there. I still have a weakness for a McFlurry or a double quarter pounder with cheese here and there. But I had some mean gas brewing that day. I figured I'd just let out as much of it as I could on the walk to the restaurant, and I did. Sean got a whiff and, over-dramatically gagged, then called me nasty while pointing and laughing. Kids do that a lot, so I didn't really care. Though as soon as Sean had finished eating his lunch, he went running into the place. Pretty much kicked his shoes off in random directions as he ran in. I had to get the help of an employee because one of the shoes flew behind a part of the place that customers were not supposed to go into. I waited for Sean to have his fun for a while, but he didn't want to come out when I was ready to leave. I called multiple times for him to come out, but he just laughed at me and said I wasn't his dad. I couldn't call Sherry because I knew she would be too busy to talk, and I wanted to get outside because I was holding in another fart. But Sean's refusing to leave finally made me get petty enough to screw with him. He was currently the only kid in the place, so I figured why not. I went over to the tube slide and put my ass in it. And then I let a huge fart that was way worse than I expected it'd be. I'd been drinking plenty of cola, so the caffeine only made it worse. It was one of those category 7 or 8 silent farts that feels like it burns your sphincter really bad on the way out. And inside of one of those tube structures, well, it may as well have been a Dutch oven on steroids plus hot gas floats. So it made its way up into there pretty fast. I said to Sean that I'd farted in the place and that he might want to come out before he smells it. Well, he didn't believe me and blew me a raspberry from one of the windows. So I just sat down and waited. About a minute or two later, Sean started making a lot of nose shuffling around inside the place. But he didn't come out. I think he tried to stick it out for at least 5 or 10 minutes, but eventually he conceded defeat, came crawling out with his eyes watering and looking like he wanted to throw up. He started hitting me in that way little kids do, and they try to wail on an adult by flailing their fists at them. I just laughed and he said it wasn't funny. Sean got his shoes on and I saw some parents with their kids entering the play area. And as a joke, I said to them that Sean farted in the place and they might want to let it air out for a while before their kids go in it. Sean started yelling that it wasn't him, but I just laughed some more and said, sure it wasn't, in a sarcastic way. I took Sean back to my apartment and he pretty much avoided talking to me and just played video games until Sherry came to pick him up. And when she got there, Sean went crying to her that I'd farted him out at the place. I explained what happened and Sherry actually started laughing and then told Sean he needed to listen to me more. When I was babysitting him, Sean looked defeated and just left with her, and any time I watched him after that, I'd threaten to fart if he acted out or didn't listen. Worked pretty well. I took him to McDonald's a few more times and he always came out of the place when I said it was time to go. Guess he didn't want another Dutch oven. I babysat the kid here and there until the incident where I caught him trying to steal from my wallet. I was coming out of the bathroom after taking a leak and I saw him holding my wallet in one hand and had the whole wad of my cash in his other hand. He just froze staring at me and then started crying the moment I angrily said to put the money back. I made him hand the money and wallet over and he really didn't want to. Then I called his mom. Sherry was so mad that she grounded him for a month. And then pretty much stopped asking me to watch the bow, and that was the end of that. Eventually Sherry moved out and haven't seen her or Sean ever since. Stories number 16. I hate my wife's mother. My wife's mother is a manipulative human being and the only thing she cares about is her gambling habits. It pains me she lives under the same roof as I, and not make matters worse there's a neighborhood casino right down the street from us. When we all moved in together, well, let me rephrase that. When we agreed to let her move in, it's $1,000 a month. She complained about that after the 3rd month because of her gambling habits was cut to slim, but she still wanted to reap the same benefits as everyone else in the household. She causes chaos between my wife and I, and to make matters worse, She stressed my sister-in-law out to the point she died, while suffering from cancer. She speaks bad about my father-in-law who's deceased, who gave her the life she would have never had on her own. I hate the fact I'd breathe the same air as her every day. I think about blowing my brains out just because I have to live under the same roof as her. I literally think I die, and I'm in hell. I literally think and feel she's going to stress my wife to the point she's going to die before her mother. If that even happened, I don't know what I would do in a response. I really hate this lady and I pray every day to get that out of my heart. I'm even going out to the point of getting some mushrooms and hopefully it will turn my emotion towards her the opposite. How in the hell you can carry so much negativity and entitlement, only paying $600 a month when we're paying for her cell phone bill and she can take her money and go gamble while we're struggling with everything else. I'm coming to the point to be very comfortable to snuff myself out so I don't have to suffer from this anymore. I don't know what to do. I had to talk with my wife and she's tired of her. But the fact is she feels sorry for her and she carries so much empathy for humanity. She will not put her in the home, not just yet. I think my lifeline is running very short. Stories number 17. My mom cheated on my dad and he GD himself. When I was 5 years old and I saw my mom bring home another guy. I asked mom, why is this man here, and she said, he is just an old friend. We are planning a surprise birthday party, so I call him. My dad and I remember asking him, Dad, how was work? And he said it was busy as usual, but I always have time for you. Well, mommy told me a secret, but it's so hard to keep, and I remember him asking, what is it? Well, mommy told me to not tell you, but it's so hard to keep, and I remember him saying, if you tell me I will buy you these new shoes you want. I remember saying, mommy is with another. I remember my dad asking, what are they doing? I remember saying, I think they are making macaroni, and he said, don't worry son, I'll be home in a minute. So my dad comes home and sees my mom doing it with another guy, and I remember my dad telling me, son, me and your mom have decided to go our separate ways. I remember asking him, why, Dad? What's wrong? I need time on my own. I remember saying, but Dad, I love you. I love you too, son, you mean the world to me. What, you'll be back? He said, I don't know. I remember messaging my mom, hey mom. She said, what do you want, you little snitch? Dad came. She told me to tell to pack, leave, and I remember saying, Mom, Dad is here and he is not touching the ground. I still remember that picture. Even though I was traumatized, I still have picture in my head. Stories number 18. He's my husband. You got to be shy asking me. Okay, so my husband had a great story. He operated a remote fishing lodge in Alaska, took some new guests, Jane and her husband Roger, out fishing on the second day of their trip. Normally all the fishing done from the boat, but the sockeye were in. Fishing for sockeye requires standing along the banks of a stream. As the fish make their way from the ocean back up to the lake they were born in to spawn. Lots of fun, but can be super slippery standing on slimy moss-covered boulders, water splashing and crashing. Fish are jumping. So the three of them are having a blast. Jane and Roger are really having a great time. Then it happens while fighting her fish. Jane slips on the rocks, loses her balance, feet come out from under her and she goes down hard, hitting her head on one of the boulders she had been standing on. Luckily she didn't lose consciousness, but the men are understandably concerned. Jane's in her late 50s, they're 30 miles from medical help. She's now soaking wet, cold, bleeding, with a huge knot growing on her head. The guys calmly pack her into the boat, wrap her in blankets, and prepare for the 1-hour-plus boat ride into town to get her checked by a doctor. After a few minutes in the boat, Jane starts looking wildly around with big eyes and a panicked expression. My husband talks calmly to her, trying to get her to relax a bit. But Jane wouldn't have any of it. Where am I? What's going on? Who are you? Whoa. My husband Dave realizes the situation is even more serious than he had thought. Jane, my husband says to her, I'm Dave, your guide. This is your husband Roger. You fell and hit your head, and Roger and I are taking you into town for stitches. Everything's okay. At this point Jane felt the bandages on her head, looked around again, looked at my husband, looked at Roger, and burst out, he's my husband. You've got to be shitting me. LOL. Rip Dave. Stories number 19. Lost a lot of weight and it kinda sucks. For quite a while now I've been a bit overweight, but in truth it never bothered me all that much. I was never of the mindset that fat automatically means ugly. I have a cute face, a decent social life, no problems dating, and can be pretty outgoing when the mood strikes, so I was content with my size. The issue arose when I went on a trip abroad and was definitely struggling to keep up during hikes. I decided I didn't want to repeat that experience for any future trips, so I try in earnest on getting healthier. As a result, my skin has cleared up quite a bit, and I've also lost a significant amount of weight. I've always been busty, but now that I've lost so much weight and my waist is thin, I'm a lot closer to what is considered traditionally hot. The issue is how people have started treating me, acquaintances who I've barely spoken to, feel completely comfortable commenting on my body. "Oh my god, your waist is so tiny, your butt is smaller," etc. It makes me feel extremely uncomfortable. Additionally, men, married and single, who rarely ever spoke to me before are suddenly super interested in striking out and holding frivolous conversations with me. This also makes me uncomfortable. Go talk to your wife about what you're thinking about having for dinner, not me. And the worst is how my female friends, or at least those I thought were my friends, are behaving. Many of them are now standoffish, have stopped inviting me out to group activities I used to always attend with them, and just don't seem all that interested in being my friend anymore. I thought maybe at first it was something I was doing to rub them the wrong way, but I think I can say pretty confidently my behavior hasn't changed. I don't brag about myself or my weight loss. In fact, I intentionally don't mention it at all. I'm happy to talk about whatever latest sci-fi show book that I'm meant to like normal. It's gotten to the point that I find myself mostly just staying home to avoid people altogether. I thought I'd be so much happier once I got healthier, but so far I feel like it's only negatively affected my life. Stories number 20. I used to fuck a girl who dated my ex. I knew she was dating my crush and she knew I liked him. I used to have full-on makeout sessions with my friend girl, let's call her VI and call him Alex. We didn't like each other and we were both females screwing around. I told VI about my crush in the beginning of our friendship, and turns out my crush Alex was her ex. They weren't together, but at the same time they were. Because they weren't official, I wasn't upset that she was flirting with him, and also used to date him. She told me to try and get together with him. We talked for a while and eventually we became really close friends. One day I invited him to my house while she was over. I didn't expect him to come straight over because he was usually late to everything. Me and VI were having a little makeout session before he came over. My friend I used to roommate let him in when he came, not knowing VI was with me making out, and he walked in on us screwing. I don't usually lock my door because whenever my roommate wanted something they would just text me about it. So when he came in, me and VI were naked only with a sports bra on. We were both kinda surprised. He left so fast. VI told me she didn't want to do this little thing anymore a couple weeks after. We were still friends, but without the benefits. I had found out after she said she didn't want to do this anymore. VI was dating Alex. And get this, she asked him. Stories number 21. My daughter has a crazy sense of humor. She was maybe 9 years old, planning her birthday party. She wanted a bouncer at her party. So, I asked a 6'6" friend of mine if he'd serve in this role. He got a black t-shirt with security written on it, a clipboard, and mirrored shades. As the minivans came up the driveway, he would stop them, inform them this was a private event by invitation only. They would say they were invited and provide their name. He would scan his clipboard and say, "Oh yes, I have your name here," and let the families in. Everyone thought it was weird, but my daughter and I thought it was hilarious. Stories number 22. I'm so sick of my wife giving me task lists. I work 3 jobs, and often leave the house from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. My wife works a part-time job and does online sales. The reality is I work a whole lot more hours than I need to, so she can work a fucking part-time job and chase her dream of having recurring revenue or whatever. On top of that, I do the entire fucking cleaning of the house, pick up the cat shit every single fucking time, drive her around for her to buy stuff at TJ Maxx, whatever. I do it 90% willingly and happy to help out. It's not to say she doesn't do anything. She does the cooking, which she is very good at and brings a lot to the relationship. Also, I actually like her, like spending time with her, and I don't really want to be in a relationship with a person as driven as me, because I've done it in the past and it just doesn't really work. But all the groceries and the dishes are my responsibility. Her share of the rent is late because she works the minimum amount of hours. Good thing I work 60 so I can cover it. Anyway, all this is fine most of the time, but lately she's been watching these stupid-ass coaching videos on how to organize things. So she says she created a list and holds herself accountable and blah blah blah. Nope, she created shit for me and holds me accountable, not herself. Fuck. Man. I love Anne, I actually enjoy spending time with her. But today she absolutely drove me nuts on the one fucking day off I've had all month, god damn it. Stories number 23. Aita for telling another parent they're wrong to blame my daughter and expect too much of me, and their kid is in my home. My daughter Arya 13F has been best friends with Lila 13F since they went to the same preschool together. They're always spending time together and have a bitter group of friends, but know each other the longest and are the closest with each other. Lila's family situation is a little difficult, and her mom went a little crazy on me last week, which led to a conflict. To sum up the current problem, Lila has a blended family. It's her mom, her stepdad, some step-siblings, and some half-siblings. Lila has expressed that she doesn't feel close to them. She always emphasizes that she has no real siblings, and that even her half-siblings are just half-siblings and they're not her dad's kids too. I have heard her tell Arya how much it bugs her when people say her step and half-siblings are just siblings, but they don't talk about it too often. Lila's mother showed up at my house last week and blamed Arya for Lila's use of the step and half terms. She said she heard the girls talk about it and them say step and half-siblings aren't real siblings. She said she knows that must have come from Arya because she has been fighting Lila for years to stop saying step and half. I asked her how that even made sense. She told me Arya must be the source, and I told her Lila says that whether Arya is around or not, and she's wrong to blame Arya for how Lila feels. Lila's mother then told me I should be watching over the girls whenever they're in my home or my presence, and correcting Lila whenever she uses step half or says they're not her real family. I told Lila's mother she couldn't seriously expect me to listen to them 24/7 so I can correct Lila, and it's too much for her to expect me to do when her kid is over to play with mine. She was not happy with me at all. She told me I can't say Arya isn't to blame and in the same breath refuse to correct Lila when she says something wrong. She told me I just want to let them away with saying stuff and I don't do enough for Lil, even though Lila spends more time at my house than she does her own. In the same breath, Lila's mother said her husband is so sick of Lila refusing to cooperate there, and she needs to be here more so I can correct her. I told her she really is expecting too much. She told me I was a bitch and a shitty person. Stories number 24. One time, when I was in middle school, I went to church camp, and like the second day, there we were all in a big auditorium with fantastic acoustics, and they closed out the worship and preaching with prayer, and it got real deep and stuff. And the place got silent while we were praying, and a guy a few seats down farted. We were sitting on metal chairs in a big auditorium with great acoustics. Anyways, some people laughed and let it go, but me, I have the humor of a child, and farts are just what does it for me, and I couldn't stop laughing. So a group of leaders approached me thinking I was crying, and like 12 people had their hands on me and were praying out loud, and the situation just made me laugh even harder. It was extremely awkward. I'm 31 years old and I still remember this shit today. Stories number 25. I broke my girlfriend's nose. I am 20 for have been with my F22 girlfriend for about 2 years. We've had our ups and downs. We had a pretty good relationship. Last week my girlfriend and I were at home. She was drinking but I wasn't. We got into a stupid argument about something I can't even remember. Suddenly she punched me in the face. I was shocked and hit her back without thinking, and I broke her nose. She was taken to the hospital and I stayed back feeling awful. I didn't want to hurt her, but I reacted without thinking. Since then her parents are really angry with me, and some of our friends have stopped talking to me. She hasn't spoken to me directly, but I've heard from friends that she's really upset and scared of me now. She moved back in with her parents too. I can't believe I did that, but at the same time, I wasn't thinking it was a reaction. I keep thinking about it and wondering if I could have handled it differently. Stories number 26. Aita for not following a random parent's comments about what I was doing with my child. I 40F took my daughter 9-month-old to a local children's museum to an exhibit where she could play. There are usually other children and parents there. While there we were letting my daughter do her thing as she's at the age where she wants to try to crawl as well as pull herself up to stand. We were letting her do this with standing up, and this woman comes up to me with her son. Curious how the conversation went down. Random lady, how old is she? Me holding the baby while she stands 9 months old. Random lady, you're not supposed to let her do that for more than 16 seconds. Me looks at her, then goes silent and looks away while ignoring the random who has decided she's going to parent my child. Continuing to play with my daughter and mind my own business. Random lady, doctors have told me that at that age you're not supposed to let them do that more than 16 seconds because it's bad for their joints. Me looks up then looks away again, continuing to play with my daughter who is still standing, and looking at my cousin who came with us, still clearly ignoring the random person. Random lady, do you understand English? Me, I understand English perfectly well. I appreciate what you told me, but I am not going to follow your advice. After that I turned away from her again. The lady stared at me with a bit of shock and then turned around and walked away. I'm a new mom and still learning about parenting culture. My daughter was not hurt or being harmed in any way, and unlimited floor time with standing, crawling, etc. is what we do to support the baby's development and is in accordance with our pediatrician's advice. My daughter was not being forced to stand up. Furthermore, I don't really understand why the heck this person seemed to care so much about a child that does not belong to her. She needed to mind her own business. So Aita, stories number 27. Young with a lot of free time. I was about 17 and still living at home, pretty nice neighborhood, with houses real close together. Anyway, I was at Walmart one day and saw they had small garden gnomes for sale for super cheap, like couple dollars per. So naturally I bought as many as I could. I had maybe 40 to 50 and absolutely no idea what to do with them. A few days later I was walking my dog Pitbull Boxer mix, and the sweetest thing, and I passed a lady with a small dog. This little dog started barking at mine and this lady fucking kicked my dog. I didn't know what to do, but I saw her rush home and go inside, and that's when I got an idea. Every night between 11:30 to 1:00 I would walk up to her front door and put one gnome just right in their entryway. I'd get up the next day for school and sometimes either look at it and throw it away. As the days passed I got more creative and started hiding them or putting them in little scenes. One day I saw her and her husband yelling at each other, pointing at them. I am pretty sure I drove them insane, and it was well worth the money I spent. Don't kick my fucking dog. Stories number 28. I'm 38 and have been addicted to meth since I was 15, and no one in my life knows about it. I want to quit, but I'm scared. I feel like the addiction has become my personality and who I am. I'm afraid of the unknowns of sobriety and the emotions that I've avoided by using, and the fact that I've never dealt with anything that I've been through emotionally and instead just got high and avoid. Is it possible to quit after this long of an addiction without rehab? Do you have to have the 12 steps in order to succeed? Is my brain completely destroyed beyond any kind repair or hope? I've never used enough to where I was tweaked out of my mind or psychotic, made sure I never used enough that made anyone question or think I was a user or on drugs. I never wanted my mom to find out and think it was her fault or blame herself. I never tried new ways of getting a hit or high. I've stuck with one method. I've been lucky enough to not be faced with terrifying situations or scenarios in order to get any. I've had the same dealer for about 10 years now, and he's the only one who really knows the real me. Or at least he knows the me that no one else sees. I used to be amused when people would discuss meth addicts when seeing someone on drugs. Knowing their entire outlook on what a meth addict looks like was wrong because one was right in front of them and they had no idea. I don't fit the description of what most people think of when they think meth user. I'm a sweet girl, I don't get into trouble, I'm pretty enough, or at least I used to be in my 20s. I'm not sickly looking, I don't pick my skin. In an addict who people know as a friend, coworker, daughter, sister, neighbor. If kept it a secret and have maintained a steady job and life. I'm ashamed of it and hate myself for it. I want to stop using, but I've created a warped sense of normalcy with the drug. Without it, would I be able to function sober or even know how? I don't know life without meth. I can't remember my life before it. I'm tired of using, I'm tired of the lie. I'm tired of living. I'm tired of pretending I'm okay. I'm tired of planning every day around it. I'm tired. I keep asking myself, is it possible to quit after all these years? Knowing that everything I am is because of this drug, I don't know. Is it even worth trying at this point? I have no future. I hate living, not like suicidal, but just that the day-to-day of living is not something I like doing. I thought for sure my addiction would have taken me out by now, heart failure or something. I'm such a goddamn liar, and I live a lie, and just I'm not a good person. I'm a drug addict. Everyone in my life deserves better than what I give them. I've been a long time user in silence, but can I quit using in silence too? I can't go to rehab. Well, not can't. I won't. Stories number 29. Aita didn't let my sister take part in a family trip because she keeps making fun of my wife. I never thought that I would become one of those people who need advice from Reddit. No offense, but it seems that I need to talk anonymously. There will probably be bad English here. For 5 months my ex-wife cheated on me. We had been together since high school and got married very young, but after our firstborn died at birth our relationship cracked. I behaved like a real asshole during that period, I admit it. She was deeply depressed, and the one who saved her during that period was her online friend with whom she eventually crossed the line. There was nothing physical, but there was a lot of flirting, naked photos, and absolute emotional attachment. As a result, they broke off communication. She told me about everything that had been going on all this time, and we decided to break up. After 3 years of being divorced, we decided to try again. I was the initiator of the restoration of relations. You can think about it all you want, I don't care. That's not what I came to talk about. It was a great decision for me. We went to consultations for a long time, talked a lot, and now our relationship is even better and stronger than before. I'm absolutely happy and I don't regret a second. So to the point, this summer I decided to celebrate my birthday at the resort for the first time and take my family there. It was planned that my mother, my 2 younger sisters, both adults, and my ex-wife would be there. Would it be right to call her the bride again? Technically, you're engaged for the second time now. This is not some kind of traditional or emotionally important trip. I just used to celebrate this day with my family. And I knew that they would be delighted with the opportunity to visit abroad because they did not travel much outside our country and we live in a very small European country. I just wanted to please them. However, one of my sisters constantly reminds my wife of what she did. They treated each other well before my divorce. But from the moment my ex and I decided to restore our relationship, my sister clearly hated her. She treats her pointedly coldly and makes snide comments that I should hope that there will be no nice workers at the resort and we don't have to spend money on a second wedding because the marriage obviously won't last long. After almost every family meeting, my wife returned home in tears. After I asked my sister to stop and it didn't work, she said she was just joking because of stress. I canceled her ticket. I didn't want to take revenge on her and it was difficult for me to make this decision, but I knew that she would ruin my wife's vacation and I wanted to prevent it. My family kind of understood me, but my sister is very upset because she will never be able to afford such a trip and has kind of been cut off from the rest of the family. My wife said she feels a little guilty about her now. But we're all emotionally involved in this, so I wonder what a bunch of strangers think. Stories number 30. A kid pretended to be homeless because his mom wouldn't get him a churro. Last December I visited my fiance's home country with her and our kids for the holidays. We first went to the city where she was raised, then to the one her family lived in, and then back to the first one. On one of our last days there we went for a walk on a large, slightly crowded street. According to my fiancé, said street is very popular and has a large homeless population. It's normal to get stopped on the sidewalk by someone asking for money or food. Anyway, we walked past an alley with food trucks, including a churro one. As we were walking, a young boy 6 years old at most approached me and said, "Mister, can you buy me a churro?" I stood there for a second as I didn't understand what he was saying. My fiancé later translated it to me. Then the kid's mom showed up, shouted his name, and pulled him back by his arm. My fiancé heard her scolding him that he couldn't ask strangers for stuff just because she said she wouldn't buy it. The boy started crying, "But I want a churro." And the mom reminded him he just had cake an hour prior. I don't know why, but I still giggle a little every time I remember that. Stories number 31. I cannot stand election years. I am so sick and tired of people in my life turning into completely different people during election periods. Seriously, it's the worst. My mother is very heavily leaning left. I myself also happen to lean left on most issues, so she and I see eye to eye on most things. But on the rare things we don't agree on, my mom turns into the worst person in the world. My mom isn't just into the news or into politics, she's sensationalized. She spends all day every day on the Bird app watching the news, reading articles, anything she can do. She absolutely despises the right, and if you disagree with her on ANY issues at all, she absolutely loses her mind. Today she and I didn't even have a big disagreement. I simply don't think things will be as bad as she and other hardcore lefties think it will be if Trump gets elected, and next thing I knew it exploded into a massive fight, and I'm still shocked at how it happened. Honestly, if Trump does get elected, do I think it will be pleasant? Not particularly, no, but she acts like the sky is literally going to fall down. And anybody who isn't joining her in screaming like a lunatic about it is an American and not doing their part. I'm so sick and tired of election years. Stories number 32. Aita for calling my friends bitches after an intervention. My 20 friends can have tendency to be overly dramatic, and this was the case when I got an intervention from them about my weight. It wasn't like what I'd seen in TV or movies, where people show up to a room and everyone's in a circle. Friday night a group of us were hanging out in my friend's new apartment, when one of my friends just turned off the TV and everyone kind of started looking at me. They told me I needed to buckle down and get serious about my weight. They were all offering to help me make diet plans, show me how to cook, healthy exercise, workout routine ideas. Where my friends and I differ is that whereas they'll pretty much just eat like salads and yogurt, low-cal yogurt, I'll eat French fries and ice cream. I'm 5'10", 228, so technically I'm overweight. I told them I didn't want to do this, I didn't need to do this. I told them they were just bitches for ambushing me like this. They called my fucking dumb for not seeing they're trying to help. I ended up leaving the apartment. Almost everyone texted that me calling them bitches was too far. Stories number 33. In 2013 I sent my ex a cactus. Then today. Years ago my ex cheated on me. It sucked, he did come clean about it immediately, so I will give credit where credit is due, but I ended things. After breaking it off I wanted a clean cut. I blocked his number and all connected social media platforms. It worked really well for a few days, until he applied to the cafe that I worked in, intending to stay in contact with me without my knowledge, and got hired. That was a bit of a shock and quite the disappointment. I loved my job but suddenly hated having to be there every day. It was rough, very emotional for me. I felt as though I couldn't properly heal and knew that I'd have to quit to find a new job. The situation was already pretty bad, but having to quit a job that I genuinely loved made it worse. I was pissed. I wanted revenge. Now I'm not a particularly vindictive person, but I wanted to release some of my anger. I didn't want to do anything that would hurt him, anything illegal, or anything that would permanently damage his stuff. I just wanted him to know exactly how I felt. I ended up buying a cactus, just a little round one. I also hand-made a small mosaic vase. Afterwards I wrote a very detailed two-page letter. It was very raw. It was very blunt. It was basically just a mess of emotional vomit. At the end I drew a 6-panel instruction manual explaining how to properly insert the cactus into his butt. I know it was immature and petty as fuck, not my best moment. But it did the trick. I was able to put some real effort into it, and it got some of those pent-up feelings out. Shortly after I quit the job, which stopped all contact. Now I hadn't even thought about him in ages. Years, literal years, until today. This morning, I received a Snapchat message from someone that I didn't recognize. I opened it. It was a photo of the cactus in the mosaic vase, with a huge pink flower on top, and the caption, "It's in bloom." I lost it. I haven't laughed that hard in a hot minute. I hope that this story makes you laugh too. Stories number 34. I took a shit and threw up on my boyfriend's bed by accident. I can never tell him before anyone comments to ask. No, I'm not Amber Heard. I have a really stiff back, so from time to time, I do some yoga moves to stretch and pop my back. I usually walk around my home and his apartment buck naked because I'm at my most comfortable when I'm naked. I was on his bed watching anime as I was doing the downward dog. My stomach had been messing with me because I had eaten Taco Bell a few hours before, so I thought I'd let out a fart. It was not a fart. A wet clump of shit shot out of my ass far enough to land between my middle and second biggest toe, plopping onto his bed sheets. I immediately sprang up to clean it up, but the smell was so bad that I ended up throwing up. So there I was hopping on one foot so I don't get my shit covered toes on the carpet. Vomit dribbling down my chin onto my bare chest trying to pry off the bedsheets. I finally did without any more projectile bodily fluids getting everywhere. Threw them in an empty hamper and hopped to the bathroom to take a shower. After I opened up all the windows to get rid of the smell and washed his sheets using extra fabric softener and detergent. He was at work the whole time this happened. He never suspected a thing and I will never tell him. Only you Reddit hold my deepest secret now. Stories number 35. What if told my wife I need a break too? Okay, I want to preface this by saying, I have tremendous respect for all SAHPN. If you don't, you're not the kind of person I'm asking. But I also don't think my corporate job is less exhausting. Me and my wife recently had our first child, a baby girl of 6 months. I work at a good job with good benefits, although the schedule is nothing short of brutal, so I got 5 months off as paternity leave. Basically my schedule is a little something like this. I get up at 6:30 and leave the house at 7:30, getting to my job at 8. I then work till 6:30, with a 30-minute lunch break in between. I get home at 7 and then take over from my wife for about 2 hours before handling calls and documents for the next hour and hopefully having dinner at some point before getting to sleep at 10 to 11. So my only break is that 30 minutes. I feel like I'm dying. I know being a new parent is hard and my wife does need the break that I can give her, but I'm running on fumes. I don't know though, would it be selfish if I asked for a break myself? I mean, I get time on the weekends where I get to sleep in for a bit and I can take a break when baby takes a nap, so maybe I'm overreacting. What if I raise this with my wife? I don't want to put more pressure on her. Edit. Messing with my work hours at this moment is not an option. My wife has no job and has never had a job. My job is the sole thing bankrolling our entire lives. My job specifically requires me to have periods where I work these kind of hours. I do not do this all the time. No, I cannot change my industry at the moment. Stories number 36. Buying a rubber. Here's a funny story from high school I'd like to share. In high school I was in the percussion section of our school band. Our percussion teacher, who was from Great Britain, told a story about what happened when he went to buy a rubber from a store. Keep this in mind, you know those erasers that are bigger and aren't on the end of a pencil? British people refer to those as rubbers, or at least they did back then. I don't know if they still do or not. Well, anyway, he goes to a store, walks up to the counter and he says, "I'd like to buy a rubber please." The clerk responds to him, "Well sir, they come 5 in a pack." To which my teacher reply, "That's ridiculous, one would last me a year." We all laughed so hard, lol. Stories number 37. I took a massive dump today and I'm so relieved. Sounds weird, I know, probably something people can relate to. I am a young woman who presents as very dignified and feminine. I wear makeup, wear cute dresses, do all things girly. I am also quite short. Heck, I've been with my boyfriend for a while and I refuse to admit to him that I poop. We joke about pooping, but anytime he tries to bring up my bowel motions I laugh it off and say, "Girls don't poop, honey, you men poop on behalf of us." He is still waiting to bring that poop cake the day he finds out I shit. Like literally, if he even hears a plop. I'm low-key terrified of him hearing it. But today, have mustered the courage to announce this anonymously on Reddit as I feel so relieved. I usually get quite constipated, but this time, I think I went for 5 days without shitting. Usually 3 days are your sign to take laxatives. I did not. For these few days I also was very bloated. Trapped gases in my tummy, farts that smelled like death, and I had to go do them secretly. So today, I finally felt that intense urgent to shit. I could feel my bottom and ready to dump, so I got on the toilet and did my business. When I looked at it, it was a massive log of shit. Almost like I could see the curvature of it too, where some of it must have been sitting. In the colon going down to the rectum, man, just waiting there. It was really wide too. It was the biggest shit I'd ever taken my whole life. It certainly hurt to pass it, but it felt so good once it was all dealt with. Today I learned the dimensions of my rectum and colon inside me. And I don't know why I'm announcing this on Reddit. I'm just baffled as to how a woman of my size could pass such a massive log. So yes, it's time for me to incorporate things in my diet that make my bowels move more often. Thank you for reading. Edit. The girls don't poop thing is a joke. He knows I should. I just deflect every time he tries to talk about it casually. We will talk about it seriously Oh, if there are health concerns related to it. I don't deliberately hold it in. I've been constipated in the past. These past 5 days I did not even realize. I've been really busy, but that's really not an excuse. I need to do better. Your comments have given me the courage to admit it to him. So I did. He is getting me a poutine cake but has also been giving me advice about my diet. Now he's a health freak and I'm so thankful. So starting today I'm going to try having chia seeds and other things. Stories number 38. Aita for banning my daughter from going to her best friend's house. My daughter and her best friend will have been friends since they were 5 and I let her sleep over at his house. Sometimes they're 13. Her best friend is a really sweet boy and I love their dynamic. I think the both of them are adorable, but I don't think I can continue letting her go to his house. This is so insane, but my daughter fell and broke her arm while at their house. Accidents happen, so I would have been understanding if his mom called me, but she didn't. I had no idea about it until my daughter came home the next day. She didn't have a phone because hers was broken and I didn't get around to buying her a new one yet because we've had a lot of expensive. So I trusted her parents would call me if there was an issue. But no, she spent the night at their house and then walked home with her best friend. So his parents didn't even walk her home while her arm was broken. The most insane part of this all is that her mom is a nurse, so there isn't any excuse. I told her that I find it really messed up that she didn't tell me and it turned into a whole argument. She said my daughter seemed fine and she was playing afterwards and she was too exhausted to take her to the hospital. She said she knew I would make a big deal out of nothing, so she thought it could wait. I insulted her, if I'm honest. I said she was a terrible parent and treated my daughter terribly. She let her walk home alone well with a child, but a parent should have been with her. And she should have called me the second my daughter was hurt. She insulted me back and it was a whole mess. I told my daughter and my son that they can't go over to that house anymore because that kid's parents are clearly insane. My daughter is especially sad about this because that is her best friend, but I do think it is for the best. I do not feel comfortable leaving them alone together. I feel like those parents are neglectful. Stories number 39. I secretly have a pigeon my wife tried getting rid of. I work on a farm and found a baby pigeon in the pig pens with a broken wing, broken leg and all his tail feathers pulled out. Being a big ol' softy, I brought the pigeon home and gave it medical attention and medications. A few days later, my wife, who doesn't like the fact I keep helping injure animals because she thinks I should let nature take its course and just kill them, intentionally left the pantry door open where he was being kept, letting him out. Well, 2 days later, while working on the farm during a very bad rainstorm, the same pigeon dragged itself out from a trash skip, big open top trash bin, and collapsed in front of me, completely exhausted and almost dead. He actually came to me for help. My heart absolutely broke. So I took him home and set up a cage for him in my art studio, which is pretty much off limits to everyone else, but also the room next to our bedroom. It has been a few weeks. The splints have come off the leg and wing, all mended, and the tail feathers had started to come in nicely and he is starting to fly short distances. I spend a lot of time with the skippy. He used to skip when he walked, and we have bonded to a point. He follows me all around the house while I work and sits in my lap and on my head while I do my art. Last night he had finally started whistling while I was with him. Later in the night, while we were laying in bed but still awake, we could hear a soft cooing noise. I of course knew exactly where it was coming from, but my wife was looking out the window situated between our bed and the wall dividing us from Skippy's room, and remarked that cooing outside is so loud it sounds like it is coming from inside the house. I'm convinced she doesn't know about Skippy. Holy moly, my eyes were as wide and as innocent looking as they could possibly be when I agreed it sounded like that, but definitely is coming from outside. Guess it is only a matter of time before she finds out. Skippy has become domesticated and wouldn't survive outside long, and he loves VIDing with me while I work. And I enjoy his company. I just need to bite the bullet and figure out how to let her know without getting in too much trouble. Stories number 40. I'm becoming too successful too fast, and it is much harder than I thought. I've changed a lot of the details below to avoid being identified. So long story short, 2.5 years ago I was just an average person socioeconomically speaking. I was halfway through grad school and didn't have any more social standing or money than my average peer, which was just fine. But then an initiative I was involved with became public, and ever since it is increasing in popularity at a disconcerting rate. Fast forward to today, I'm a millionaire, not Jeff Bezos, but my net worth is currently just shy of $10 million. And within this niche I am considered a very important authority, as well as a public figure. I keep being invited to public events around the world, expenses covered of course. Just in the last 2 months I was flown to Shanghai, Hong Kong, London, Prague, and Brisbane to give talks. Flying me over usually involves also flying a delegation of at least 4 to 5 people from around the world to represent our project. These people come with tons of merch subsidized by third parties who support the project, and some of them even have my personal likeness on them, though I refuse any explicit use of my name. Wherever I go, people come especially to hear me and meet me and have their picture taken with me. At this point, I am used to people standing in line to take a selfie with me, shake my hand, ask me to sign some merch. They then upload the picture to Twitter to brag, and people actually respond with, "Oh my god, you met throwaway in person, you are so lucky." Everything I write publicly gets translated immediately into at least 10 languages. And people make YouTube videos analyzing my statements and picking them apart. I have found myself in crazy situations where very serious people from serious industries, for example the energy industry, medical industry, etc., invite me to private meetings which are often more luxurious than I feel comfortable with. Lobster dinners, free access to a collection of rare scotch. Last time there was a bartender who just kept serving me more and more single malts. Later I checked online and found to my horror that some of the bottles I drank from cost more than €1,000. I was in a private conference in a palace in Morocco. Next week, one of our beneficiaries flies me over to California. I live in Europe in business class just so I can go sailing on his new yacht. So to make a long story short, I'm a wealthy micro-celebrity who is a wanted guest by many of the uber-wealthy. And I reached this position not by stepping on others, but by pursuing a project I really believe in that allows me to pursue goals that are very important to me, like setting up delegations to dig wells in African villages, improving the renewable energy market, and some other stuff I won't get into because that might expose my identity. So why am I complaining? Well, I really shouldn't be. I am very grateful for the opportunities that was given, and I hope I can remain true to my principle and use my modicum of power to make the world better. The thing is, it is really hard to adjust to this new reality. And since the traction is consistently on the rise, I can never really feel I've adjusted, because whatever I adjusted to was the reality of a few months ago, and by now things are completely different. It's like I'm the turtle and the mental stability I'm seeking is Achilles. I can't count all the effects this has on me, but I'll try to list some of them. I used to be a very outspoken person who always speaks his mind, no matter the cost. On principle, I refuse to censor myself on matters I found important, even if I had to pay a professional social cost. I can't do that anymore. Now things that I say reflect on the initiative I am involved with. At the beginning I tried to explain that I am my own person and I have an identity beyond this initiative, and that I am not going to squander the platform given to me. But I soon realized that whether I like it or not, I am globally recognized as a part of something bigger than me and the harm I might be doing to this initiative, which is now a community with hundreds of thousands of followers and supporters, some working extremely hard to make our ideas into a reality, outweighs any possible gain of me speaking out. For example, just a few weeks ago an uncareful tweet I made while in a bad mood, slamming a new initiative more than was warranted. As a result, 40% of their investors pulled out, costing them almost $10 million. Though they claimed this has nothing to do with my tweet, I freaked out and posted an apology and explained that my tweet was overtly harsh and out of line, and an hour later those same investors announced they will actually not be pulling out again, arguing this has nothing to do with my tweet. It is terrifying to know that my statements can have such consequences. With one pissed-off tweet, I ruined the date and almost the entire effort of a community project of more than 500 people. I developed a new kind of imposter syndrome. I mean, I've carried the I have no idea what I'm talking about, and they are all going to find out any minute that I'm a huge fraud, imposter syndrome for as long as I remember. But now I keep struggling with I act like I do the things that I do to better the world. But at this point I only do whatever it takes to leverage my own success. That is, I used to constantly doubt my talent, but I never, until recently, constantly doubted my intentions. I can never read people's motives anymore. It is a fact that being on my good side is beneficial and that in my professional niche my word can make or break new initiatives. Even when a person seems genuinely nice to me, I can't tell whether it is because they like me or because my proximity is good PR. Heck, even they can't know these things work on a subconscious level. I always trusted my judgment of character, and now I feel that I can't rely on it anymore. I always have to be respectfully suspicious and guard myself from being taken advantage of. Navigating this social situation is exhausting and I feel that it is making me more cynical. I am constantly afraid that all of this is going to go to my head and I'll lose sight of myself and become an asshole. Maybe that's just point two in different words, I don't know. This constantly triggers a girlfriend's inferiority complex. My girlfriend is an amazing person. Her profession is helping trauma survivors rehabilitate, which I tremendously respect and also find fascinating. However, since we live in the world that we live in, she hardly gets any recognition or pay for her work. The result is that her salary is pretty much meaningless for our household and she feels bad about it. I keep telling her that for me it is a huge privilege that through my newfound success I'm able to support her current line of work. Yeah, she could go work in a shitty office doing office stuff and make twice the money, but then she wouldn't be helping all the people she does. I don't feel like I am funding her, but that I am funding help for her patients, and that's one of the noblest things I can do with my profits. She also consistently says stuff like, "You are such an interesting and successful person. Why are you even with a mundane, average person like me?" The thing is, I love her dearly and I find her fascinating. She's smart, funny, compassionate, and just a really kind-hearted person. I love her mind and how we can have conversations about so many things. She's curious, a fast learner, a great singer, has a great butt. I don't know, I could go on forever. I love pretty much everything about her, but her cooking. LOL, in our house I'm the one who wears the apron. And I make a point to express my love and appreciation consistently. She acknowledges that and keeps reassuring me that those feelings of inferiority originate from her childhood baggage, and I couldn't be more supportive. And yet, it is my life course that triggers this within her. Every time something exciting happens to me, she's the first person I want to tell, but I'm afraid this will make her feel bad. I used to be able to tell her everything, but now I feel that this increasing distance between our positions in life burden her and it feels terrible. I am an open person. I constantly talk about all of the above with my friends, family, therapist, etc. I think I am going to be fine. I think I am navigating this okay. So far the only feedback I get from my environment is reassurance. They are telling me I am navigating this very well, that they are impressed with how I handle these situations and that they trust that I would not lose myself and become an asshole because I'm not the kind of person. It is empowering to know my loved ones had this faith in me, but it is hard for me to muster this faith in myself. I just wanted to share. Thanks for listening. Stories number 41. Aita, because I do not celebrate my son's accomplishments like I do his sisters and his cousins. I won't go into my kids' and their cousins' achievements. They are many and impressive. I have supported all of their interests with time and money. I made a fair bit of money a long time ago and I basically retired very young. I tried being a trust fund douchebag, but I wasn't cut out for it. I worked hard to get my money and I wasn't raised wealthy. I was just very lucky during the dot-com boom. I have 3 children and 3 nephews, on niece. I am doing my best not to brag about them, so I will say this: they took my money and time and used it to make amazing things happen for them. And I celebrate their achievements, both scholastic and athletic. I throw parties for them and I give them great presents. My son is jealous because I do not have parties for his achievements. He is a great kid and quite smart. He isn't a natural athlete, but neither am I by any stretch of the imagination. He does well in school, but I know that I will be paying out of pocket for him to attend whatever school he gets into. I also host parties for him and his friends. I just don't celebrate him as much. He had complained about this. So last week I asked him what achievement he wants to celebrate. I shit you not, his answer was that he had maxed out his fishing stat in Final Fantasy XIV. I know all those words, I even know that game. What I do not get is how a 15-year-old kid thinks that is on the same level as getting scouted for a Div 1 athletic scholarship. I said he could have a party, but that I wasn't sending out invites with that as the reason. He is upset and my wife thinks I'm being judgmental. Which I am judging him and wondering where the hell I went wrong. I'll answer a couple of questions I know will be asked. Yes, I love my son very much. Yes, he is on the spectrum. No, I don't think that is worth celebrating. No, I cannot bring myself to celebrate that. Stories number 42. This guy falsely asserted ownership of my car just to flirt with a girl. I 22 and took my car to mall for shopping. Later I saw a local guy flirting with a girl in parking lot claiming it's his car. I heard him saying to girls, see here, the sticker says his surname to prove the ownership. Coincidentally, Ian, I have same surname. I couldn't stop myself and let my intrusive thought win over me, and why not, you don't get this opportunity every day. So I barged in his conversation and said, hey, I like your car. I always wanted to buy this car, but I'm not financially strong enough. Would you mind if I experience sitting inside this car? He replied, I'm short on time, I'll waste my time on guys like you some other day. It's fine. Totally expected, but what surprised me the most was that the girl was actually entertaining his lame flirtatious behavior and obvious lies. But what does it matter to me? I simply said okay, my bad. Then I unlocked the car, placed the bags inside, rolled down windows, played the song on high volume, and drove it right in front of both of them. The gratifyingly embarrassed expression on his face brought me immense satisfaction. Stories number 43. I'm intersex with ambiguous genitalia and bisexual, and I hate how the LGBT community uses intersex people as props. For context, I feel attractions, regardless of gender sex. I also don't care if someone is transgender or non-binary and will respect their right to do what they want to with their body and will use their preferred name man. Overall, I am respectful and supportive. This isn't me hating on LGBT identities, but rather just a confession I can't post elsewhere. Growing up intersex caused me many problems in my life. I'm male with XY chromosomes and I have a penis. My testes are internal, I have most of a vagina, although it's seemingly shallow. I don't have a period, but I have hormonal cycles. My body produces both testosterone and estrogen. I don't have boobs, but my chest is slightly swollen and usually tender. I experience constant physical arousal despite not usually being horny. Obviously, I felt weird as fuck growing up. I think intersex children today will feel similarly, as there is still no representation or even acknowledgement. I was not born in a hospital, so I did not have surgery performed on me as a baby without my parents' consent, but many intersex people do experience this. It can be unwanted, make sex painful for life, and result in them growing up with the wrong genitals compared to the ones they wanted. Recently, I have noticed a push for intersex conditions to be included under the LGBT umbrella. Whether or not that is reasonable is to me not the issue. Personally, I think it depends on the person and their experience. However, my issue is that they do this at our symbol flag to theirs and do nothing to counteract discrimination we face in life. Instead, they use our existence to make arguments against people who are opposed to trans not intersex or non-binary not intersex people by saying that there are only two genders by virtue of there being only two sexes. So many LGBT activists love to bring up intersex people having ambiguous sexual characteristics and not being biologically 100% male or female to argue against this. Their intentions are very obviously to validate their own identity and argue against their own oppressors rather than because they give a shit about us. So I wish they would just be honest and stop pretending. I've even seen some people refer to us as biologically non-binary. I believe some people falsely attribute the label to themselves to validate their identity too. I just think it's cheap and fake. It pisses me off, and I don't see anyone talk about it, but I'm not open about being intersex on my other socials, so I can't post about it. I work in the sex industry, but not as a prostitute or porn star, so I don't want to be viewed as sexually flawed or open myself up to objectification or sexualization. I also don't want to be viewed as less of a man, less intimidating, so I'm posting this anonymously here. Stories number 44. Aita for telling my sil that kids like hers are the reason I'm child-free because they stole my keepsakes. I can't decide if I should feel guilty about this or just be angry. Tending toward angry right now, but I need a reality check, especially because I'm not a parent. My husband and I are in our late 30s. My family doesn't care about me being child-free, but my husband's family has asked pointedly about time running out a few times. My husband is a really sweet man who actually loves kids, and even I find them endearing most of the time, but we don't think parenting is worth it for us. We have cats. My sil has 2 kids, they're 7 and 9. They are staying with us for a week because they wanted to visit our city for vacation. We have a bookcase of keepsakes in the living room. We have flowers from our wedding in resin. I have my granddad's coin collection. We have trinkets from trips we've been on and other things like theirs. 2 shelves worth of stuff, none of it is worth any money, just very sentimental. Well, today I noticed 2 things missing: our wedding flower and a bracelet from my middle school friend. Obviously I kind of freaked out and I asked my sil if she had any idea. Her kids were also there and they looked a little odd, so I asked them if they knew anything. They said no, but they looked upset. Sil got mad and said, "I can't accuse her kids of anything." I insisted on looking in their room. Man, I found the things. I asked the kids why they took them. Man, they said they looked cool. I was really mad, but my sil told them to go down. She told me not to make such a big deal and the kids were scared. I said kids like this are why we're child-free. She said I crossed a line. I think the kids heard to because they were probably hanging around upstairs and trying to listen in, but I truly didn't mean for them to hear. My husband says I'm right, but since we got the stuff back I could have let it go and not drag him into it. Stories number 45. I got my dad detained by the police when I was 3 years old. The shopping mall near the house I grew up in used to have a small play area right in the center. While my mom shopped, my dad and I would wait there. We had a game. He would read a book and I would walk around the outskirts of the play area a few times before walking up to him and telling him that I'm lost and need to find my dad. He would give me directions. Silly directions that I had to cross the Rainbow Bridge, follow the yellow brick road through the forest, but to avoid the candy house as a witch lived inside, things like that. So I'd circle around the play area a few more times and then walk up to him again saying that I'm lost. This time though, he'd pretend to be a witch or monster and try to lure me into his lair. I'd say "You're not my daddy" and run away around the play area again before coming up to him and saying, "Daddy, I found you." Well, one of the times that we were playing, he realized that I hadn't come around for a second time and got up to look for me. He said that he saw me on the opposite side of the mall walking towards a store. He made his way towards me and got there just in time to see that I'd stopped an older woman and heard me tell her that I'm lost and need to find my dad. She of course was very concerned and took me by the hand. He said, "What are you doing? Come on, come back to the play area," and without skipping a beat I apparently looked right at him and said, "You're not my daddy." This poor woman went into major protection mode and physically got in between my dad and I. The lady ended up calling mall security, who ended up calling the police. It wasn't until my mom came and told them that he is in fact my father that they let him go. Later on she asked him why he hadn't just showed them all of the photos of us in his wallet. I guess that he panicked in the moment and didn't think about it. I have no memory of that day, but I've heard the story more times than I can count. Luckily we all look back on it thinking that it's funny rather than awful, lol. Stories number 46. I walked away from a table I was serving and then refused any more service. Edit. I don't use Reddit on my laptop, and when typing on my phone this app glitches a lot. I didn't expect anyone to read this, so I never proofread, sorry. For those of you that actually read through everything, thanks for your time. Also, I'm confessing not confiding anyone who wants to disagree that I handled a situation poorly. Thank you for your support. I don't care about the lady's feelings, but I feel guilty for lowering my standard of service in a fleeting selfish moment. Either way, thanks for everyone's responses. Second edit. I divided the post into paragraphs somehow. Rude customers are a part of service business, but when they start wasting other customers' time is when I lose my patience. My reasoning for how I handled the situation: I can put up with someone being mean, but if they are preventing me from giving good service to other tables, I think it's best they just eat elsewhere. For context, I started working at a small family-owned sushi restaurant in the city almost a year ago. This isn't the first time I've had a job like this, but this is the first time I've had a boss I feel comfortable sharing my concerns about work with. It's the most peaceful job I've ever had, and even so, in getting tired of working in service. I hate being a server. I was working on a Friday night alone. It was the first nice day of the spring and definitely the busiest day we had all year. Many of my boss regulars were dining in and I always feel obligated to be the most attentive to them. Everyone was in a really good mood, so work had been overall very pleasant. Then this couple comes in and asks to sit outside. There were 3 tables left and I took them to a four-seater. However, they asked if they could at 6 top patio table. I said yes because even though it was very busy we almost never had all of our tables full at once. At this point, I was getting a little overwhelmed. As a server at this restaurant you make cocktails, pour beverages, seat customers, take their order, run their food, run their checks and bus the tables. So you can imagine how stressful it gets if you are by yourself. My boss eventually came to help me, which she does well obviously and doesn't take any money from me. However, she has a habit of yapping away with her regulars. So I'm waiting on this couple, who seems to be about 30 to 35, asking if they'd like anything to drink, and the girl is sifting through the sake menu saying, and I ask if I can go help other tables and come back to take her drink order. She doesn't even look at me or reply, and when I look at the man, he's just staring at her nervously. Then rephrased myself in a sentence rather than a question. The lady quietly said, okay, as she continued to look at the menu. When I came back she asked for a glass of this very expensive sake that we no longer sold by glass. However, my boss never removed the glass price from the menu. I told her we don't sell it by glass, hoping she had a second one in mind, but she just pointed to the price with the glass next to it and asked, this one right here. And I said yay. We aren't allowed to open bottles of it anymore, just to sell a single glass. I offered her a small 300 milliliters bottle, which we do sell and is about the size of 3-4 glasses of sake. She ignored my response and asked why is the glass price on the menu. And I said because maybe at one point before I worked here they did sell by glass. She was visibly annoyed and scoffed while sifting through the menu again. I apologized and asked if there was any other sake I could get for her, and she replied with, well, I don't know. Are there any other secrets on this menu I need to know about? I said that's not a sake on the list, and her husband started laughing. I told her that I had to retrieve beverages for other tables, so if she wanted to tell me what sake she would like me to get, I will retrieve it for her, otherwise I'm going to have to come back to take your order. And she ignored me again and then kept saying, well, I don't know, and was clearly upset. I ended up walking away and she didn't even notice until I had come back with the table next to hers drinks. And she started yelling at me in a very unprofessional, saying, hey, trying to get my attention. I had spent so much time waiting on her I was getting behind with other tables. And this family reservation, I got super nervous and just started ignoring their table altogether. My boss never checked up on them either. Eventually every table was occupied and a group of 4 walked in asking how long for an outside table. I asked them to give me a minute and I walked over to the table with the couple I had been neglecting. The lady scoffed again and said finally. And she opened the menu aggressively, then held it in my face and pointed to the sake she wanted while the man said they were ready to order food. I didn't even try to be professional, I just responded with get out. And they both looked at me shocked. I guess it didn't register. Neither of them said anything and I got more impatient with how stressed I was over the busy night, so I yelled. I said get out. The lady responded with excuse me, and I cut her off saying she had wasted way too much of my time and everyone else eating at this restaurant, so she needs to leave. The man gave me a $10 bill for the beer he had been drinking and said sorry, and grabbed his partner and tried to drag her out, but she pushed him away and started saying shit to me. Then I immediately tuned out. I had to bust the goddamn table and wipe it down with a bleach towel. I let her ramble as I sat the for top and gave them menus and water. My boss came over and asked what is the problem, and the lady said I had refused service to them and she would file a discrimination report. My boss calmly told her that we are very busy and she would seat them as soon as a table opens up. Then this lady called her stupid and said they had already been seated, but I asked them to leave. Then my boss looked at me a little surprised and the lady started yelling to be sat now and having their entire meal comped. Her partner said, it's okay, we can go somewhere else, and eventually the lady finally left. I told my boss what happened after the rush died down and she said I was very irresponsible for handling the situation in that way. I feel really bad because at other restaurants and bars I've worked at have definitely had worse customers. I still put up with them and pushed through, but for some reason that night I was trifling. I feel even worse because this boss is actually a very sweet person and does not deserve the scathing review that lady is about to leave for her restaurant. Sorry, this isn't juicy, in just confessing my service sins. Stories number 47. Aita for bringing in a personal visitor to the nursing home I work at to compete at chess with one of the residents. I work at an assisted living facility, a nursing home for people who are very elderly and cannot care for themselves. One of the residents in the wing I work at is Josh, a 97-year-old man who has pretty bad cognitive decay. Most of the time he doesn't remember who I am, who he is, where he is, or what's going on. However, he's a former national chess champion, something I only know about because the personal effects in his room include some of his trophies and other awards. We've got a few sets in the common areas, and if you can wake him up long enough to play, he does still remember how. And he's thrashed most of the staff at one point or another over the board. Well, it's not a close friend, but I have a guy I know who is kind of a friend of a friend, let's call him Bot. And he's the top player at some local chess association, a long way down from a pro player. But the sort of guy who is usually the strongest player in the room. I had mentioned that one of the residents I care for is this former champion, and he asked to come by to visit since Bob's a huge chess nerd and wanted to meet a national champion no matter what kind of state he was in. We allow visitors, so I signed him in, and by good luck, it was on one of Josh's better days. Long story short, they went into one of the common rooms and played chess for 6 hours straight. I wasn't able to stick around to watch most of it, but I talked with Bob afterwards, who said that while he's clearly not the player he was when he won the national championships anymore, Josh is still a mean old buzzard over the board and won a bit over 2/3 of their games. Josh missed dinner, and I had to get into the canteen after hours and make him some scrambled eggs and toast just so he'd have something to eat. And I was with him for the dinner, and it was the most animated I'd seen him in ever. Actually, he was actually talking about his day and definitely remember what was going on and how this young punk came to challenge him, and he had to show the kid how it's done. All in all, I thought I did a good thing, brightened up a very old, very sick man's day. But pretty much all of my coworkers have the opposite take, that disrupting his schedule and agitating him like that was a bad asshole-ish thing to do, especially if it caused him to miss his regular dinner. I'm pretty new at this job, so I do value their opinions, but I don't think what I did was wrong. Am I the asshole here, especially if I do it again? Stories number 48. I blackmailed the CEO of American Girl doll. When I was around 10, this new doll came out from American Girl. I asked my mom if I could have the doll. When she saw it was nearly $100, she told me no. She said that it was criminal of American Girl to charge those prices for a doll. I was a very literal child who had unsupervised access to the computer and internet. I managed to get the email for the CEO of the company. I proceeded to email them. My mom said, "Your doll prices are criminal. If you don't send me one, I'm telling the police." For the next couple of days I would check the mailbox multiple times a day. When my mom asked me why, I would tell her I'm waiting on my doll. She would remind me she didn't order the doll, to which I would say I know. A few days later I received an email back from the CEO. It basically said that there are a lot of little girls out there that can't afford the doll, and if I really wanted it, I could do some chores around the house to earn money. I was furious. I started screaming, "Mom, call the police," at the top of my lungs. My mother ran in the room, terrified I was dying. I explained to her that American Girl broke the law and wouldn't send me my free doll, and we needed to tell the police. She took away my unsupervised access to internet and moved the computer to her room. I never got my doll. Stories number 49. I became abusive towards my girlfriend. She broke up with me. I find out she's been unfaithful long before. My girlfriend, and I to 6M to for FN, I have been in a 2-year relationship, and she broke up a few weeks ago to protect herself. Rightfully so. Towards the last 6 months of our relationship, my job stress took quite a toll on me, where work tempo became insane, and I was gone for the majority of those 6 months. We would get into a lot of fights while I was away, and it all added up to me becoming verbally and emotionally abusive to the point of threats. She lives with her parents, and both she, but especially her parents, are super religious. Like literally no sex before marriage type pan tattoos are the devil. I began throwing out empty threats that I'd tell her parents her secrets. Like she's had sex with lots of dudes before me and has tattoos she hides if she didn't do such and such. She broke up with me weeks ago while I was away, and we had another big fight, blocked on everything, justified, got it. I committed to self-improvement and finally, for once in my life, seeking mental help to deal with my anxiety issues, to control my emotions so I never hurt anyone again. During a mentally unstable day, I go snooping around her friend's Instagram highlights, who she goes out drinking with a lot, and bam, I find a group photo and she's sitting on a guy's lap, his arm all around her making a sexual pose. That photo was a year ago. Before all the fighting that was when we were obsessed in love with each other talking about a future. I remember that night where she told me some guy was flirting with her, saying she had a nice ass but nothing else happened. Now I'm just confused. I don't know how to process everything. If she had legit cheated and fucked another dude or many throughout our relationship, and I won't ever know. Part of me thinks it's a good thing that I became abusive and she broke up instead of continuing on with someone. Unfaithful part of me thinks maybe that photo was some misunderstanding and that I really did just fuck up. IDK man. Stories number 50. Aita for not reaching into my pocket to cover a trip she cancelled. Booked an OS holiday with my then partner. I organized it all and she paid her half of the airfare. Terms and conditions clearly stated it was a bargain fare and not changeable or refundable. She ended our relationship and cancelled the trip. Fortunately, I was able to at least get a voucher for the airfare amount with an expiry date. It's unlikely I will use the voucher as I have no travel planned. I was furious. I started screaming, "Mom, call the police," at the top of my lungs. My mother ran in the room terrified I was dying. I explained to her that American Girl broke the law and wouldn't send me my free doll and we needed to tell the police. She took away my unsupervised access to internet and moved the computer to her room. I never got my doll. Stories number 49. I became abusive towards my girlfriend. She broke up with me. I find out she's been unfaithful long before. My girlfriend, and I to 6M to for FN, I have been in a 2-year relationship and she broke up a few weeks ago to protect herself. Rightfully so. Towards the last 6 months of our relationship, my job stress took quite a toll on me, where work tempo became insane and I was gone for the majority of those 6 months. We would get into a lot of fights while I was away and it all added up to me becoming verbally and emotionally abusive to the point of threats. She lives with her parents and both she but especially her parents are super religious. Like literally no sex before marriage type pan tattoos are the devil. I began throwing out empty threats that I'd tell her parents her secrets. Like she's had sex with lots of dudes before me and has tattoos she hides if she didn't do such and such. She broke up with me weeks ago while I was away and we had another big fight, blocked on everything justified, got it. I committed to self-improvement and finally, for once in my life, seeking mental help to deal with my anxiety issues to control my emotions so I never hurt anyone again. During a mentally unstable day, I go snooping around her friend's Instagram highlights, who she goes out drinking with a lot, and bam, I find a group photo and she's sitting on a guy's lap, his arm all around her making a sexual pose. That photo was a year ago. Before all the fighting that was when we were obsessed in love with each other talking about a future. I remember that night where she told me some guy was flirting with her, saying she had a nice ass but nothing else happened. Now I'm just confused. I don't know how to process everything. If she had legit cheated and fucked another dude or many throughout our relationship, and I won't ever know. Part of me thinks it's a good thing that I became abusive and she broke up instead of continuing on with someone. Unfaithful part of me thinks maybe that photo was some misunderstanding and that I really did just fuck up. IDK man. Stories number 50. Aita for not reaching into my pocket to cover a trip she cancelled. Booked an OS holiday with my then partner. I organized it all and she paid her half of the airfare. Terms and conditions clearly stated it was a bargain fare and not changeable or refundable. She ended our relationship and cancelled the trip. Fortunately, I was able to at least get a voucher for the airfare amount with an expiry date. It's unlikely I will use the voucher as I have no travel planned. She's now demanding I give her a refund in cash for her amount, even though I clearly explained it was not refundable. I explained to her that there is a voucher sitting there for her and the airline will not transfer that voucher to her. However, should she have some travel planned, the voucher is there for her to use. She's saying this is punitive behavior and really disappointing. Ask anyone and they would agree that a respectful man would just give the money back. This is a low blow. You are being controlling. I told her to contact the airline if she's not happy. I might be the asshole for not reaching into my pocket to cover her loss, even though she knew the terms and she's the one who cancelled the trip. Stories number 51. Was not wearing my glasses. My family growing up would visit North Carolina a few times a year. I take my glasses off because it helps with car sickness and sleeping. It was dark by the time we got there. As we drove, I noticed the moon was huge and so bright. I got so excited because it was cool and pointed it out. My family busted out laughing. I was confused until they told me it was just a Burger King sign. Stories number 52. I am constantly jerking off. It's become so bad at least 2 to 3 times a day I have to jerk off. Mainly just a generic porn vid or celeb pics. It's keeping me from wanting to find a relationship, because I know I wouldn't be able to make it last. With my addiction to jerk off, if try having sex and I'll get a refund that will last a minute before going soft. Then I have to pull out jerk off to get it hard. I stick it back inside only for it to get soft again. If you don't know that feeling, it's one of the rosy feelings ever. It's so damn embarrassing. I wish I can find a GF who is okay with me constantly jerking off, but that is unlikely. Even at work he'll jerk one off in the restrooms. My brain has me wired to thinking I needed to just continue with my day. Although I do it so much, I can honestly say it still feels so good every time. That moment is always worth it. Maybe that's why I'm stuck in this cycle. Stories number 53. Aita, for how I reacted about our son's birthday party guest list. I don't really know how to word the title, but essentially me F22 and my husband M20 for have a 9-month-old son. His birthday is coming up quick. Last night I was making the guest list so I have all my ducks in a row. Come time to order invitations plus extra time in case I'd forgotten anyone. I know that my son won't remember his birthday, but honestly super important to me, since I have done 100% of the care for him in the last 9 months. I want a very sweet, intimate celebration of his first year of life with people who are important to our son and me, close family. I had asked my husband if I was missing anyone from his side of the family, and he goes, "Oh well, if we're buying a bunch of beer my friends will be there." I immediately got irritated. I told him that this wasn't a bro hang and I only want people who have relationships with our son, are actually interested in being involved in his life. And I know if my husband's friends come they'll goof off separate from the rest of the party and not be a part of the party at all. I also told him that he has the rest of the year to go hang and drink with his friends, so why does he have to do it then? And he got all pissed off and told me to cut the attitude. I tried telling him why I felt this way, but he cut me off saying no, it was fine, he just wouldn't invite his friends. His friends are all in the stage of life where none of them had any serious life partners and have no interest in settling down anytime quick. And none of them have even said a hello or interacted with our son more than twice ever. TL. Doctor, my husband wants to invite his brothers to our son's first birthday party, to drink and party, when I want an intimate celebration focused on our son.